Oscar winner Gene Hackman, a known recluse in recent years, was seen in public. As we're learning incredible new details this hour about the circumstances surrounding his death. His front door open, scattered pills on the bathroom countertop, one dog dead in the closet, two still alive on the property. 95-year-old Hackman and his wife, a 63-year-old classical pianist, their German Shepherd dog, all of them tonight mysteriously dead. The police right now are ruling out a carbon monoxide leak. This frantic 911 call captured the moment they were found.
I don't have a lot of fears. I have the normal fear of passing away. You know, I guess we all think about.
Are they moving at all?
No, dude, they're not moving. Just send somebody out here really quick.
Okay, my units are on their way, okay?
Gene Hackman, a straight-up Hollywood icon, and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead in their tucked-away Santa Fe home. At first, folks thought it was just nature taking its course. He was 95, she was 65. But when forensics stepped in, things took a wild turn. This wasn't just some peaceful passing. Something real grim was going on. Fans were already grieving the loss of the Oscar-winning legend, but then came the confusion. The first theory? Carbon monoxide poisoning. But that got shut down quickly. And the fact that both of them died just days apart? Yeah, that had investigators raising eyebrows. A deep dive into the timeline only made things shadier. How did two folks still in decent health just drop like that? Was it just some tragic coincidence, or was something way more twisted behind it? In this video, we're breaking down the chilling evidence that points to foul play, digging into the strange details that don't sit right, and revealing who might have had a reason to want Gene Hackman gone. Gene, a two-time Academy Award winner and Hollywood heavyweight, spent his later years way off the radar. At 95, he was living that quiet life in Santa Fe, New Mexico, with Betsy, his wife of over 30 years. His people said he was at peace, still sharp in the mind, and loving life away from the flashing cameras. Every now and then, you might catch him around town, sometimes on his bike, sometimes grabbing a coffee, still holding on to that independent streak. But even with his age, nobody saw his sudden, shady passing coming. And now, folks are asking, what really happened? Betsy Arakawa, a classical pianist, had always been seen as the doting ride-or-die partner who held Gene down in his later years. While some folks close to them swore their love was strong, others couldn't ignore how much more cut off he'd become. Friends and even distant relatives started noticing. Gene wasn't easy to reach anymore. He barely showed face in public. And the whispers? Oh, they got loud. Word was Betsy kept a tight grip on who got access to him, screening calls and shutting out even his longtime Hollywood crew. Some chalked it up to a wife doing what she had to do, protecting her aging man. But others, they felt something was off. And the eerie timeline leading up to their deaths only made things messier. The biggest clue? Gene's pacemaker. That little device caught the exact moment his heart gave out, February 17th, 2025. That meant by that day, Gene Hackman was already gone. But what about Betsy? Her timeline? Straight up hazy? Did she die right alongside him? Did she survive him by a few days? Or was she just sitting there, alone, trapped in a house with his lifeless body? The truth wouldn't come to light until February 26th, 2025, 9 whole days later, when maintenance workers stumbled onto a real-life nightmare. They showed up at the Hackman house for a routine check, but something felt off from the jump. No sounds, no movement. The front door, unlocked. The whole place, creepy quiet. They called out, no answer. That's when they stepped inside. And what did they find? It sent Hollywood reeling. Gene Hackman's body, cold, lifeless, right there in the front mudroom. Still fully dressed, Gene's cane and sunglasses were right there, like he had just dropped where he stood. In another part of the house, Betsy Arakawa's body lay twisted on the bathroom floor. Her position all wrong. Unnatural. A space heater was knocked over beside her, and prescription pill bottles were scattered across the counter. The whole scene felt eerie, like death had crept in and caught them both off guard. But something wasn't adding up. Investigators rolled up expecting a simple case. Natural causes, nothing more. After all, Gene was 95. But the second they stepped inside, alarms went off. No forced entry, no signs of a fight, no clear cause of death, and yet the energy in that house? Office Gene's position pointed to a sudden collapse, while Betsy, being found in another room, suggested she didn't go at the same time. Then there was the family dog situation. 2 still alive, but 1 dead. They locked in a closet. And the real question? Who put it there? The first explanation police threw out was carbon monoxide poisoning. It made sense. Sudden deaths, no struggle, a quiet scene. But when they tested the air, the results came back clear. No gas leaks, no busted appliances, nothing that could have taken them both out without a trace. With that theory shot down, investigators were back at square one. Then things got even more unsettling. Maybe Gene's age played a role. Heart failure, something expected. But Betsy? She was only 65. No known health problems. So what really happened? There was no real reason why she would have died at the exact same time, or even days later, if she had survived past Jean's passing. So what went down in those 9 missing days? Why didn't anyone hear from her? And if she was still alive, why didn't she reach out for help? As investigators pieced things together, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just some elderly couple peacefully passing in their sleep. Nah, there were too many gaps, too many things that just didn't sit right. What really went down in that house? Did Gene Hackman die naturally, or did someone make sure of it? And if foul play was involved, who stood to gain the most? That's when authorities started digging into motives, potential suspects, and the chilling possibility that Gene Hackman's death was no accident. When first responders pulled up to Gene's Santa Fe home, they thought they were walking into a routine case, an elderly couple gone peacefully. But the second they crossed that threshold, they knew this was something else. Gene Hackman's body was right there by the entryway, sprawled out on the floor, still fully dressed. His sunglasses were right beside him, his cane just inches away, like he had been about to step out when he suddenly dropped. The way he was positioned told a story. Like he had fallen mid-action, maybe reaching for the door, maybe trying to move deeper into the house. Given his age and history with heart trouble at first, authorities leaned toward a sudden cardiac event. But was it really that simple? But what did they find next? That's what really made them stop in their tracks. In another room, Betsy Arakawa's body was stretched out on the bathroom floor. Unlike Gene, she wasn't caught in mid-motion. She was lying still, curled on her side, right next to a toppled-over space heater. Looked like it had been knocked over in her last moments, maybe when she fell. On the bathroom counter, an open pill bottle sat there, pills scattered around it. But here's the thing, was she taking too many, or had they just spilled? Nobody could say for sure. And then there were the dogs. The couple had 3. 2 of them, still alive but clearly shaken, pacing through the house like they had been left alone for days. But the third, found dead, locked inside a closet. That raised a whole new set of questions. If Gene and Betsy had both gone suddenly, who locked that dog away? Did Betsy do it after Gene passed? Or was someone else in that house? On the surface, nothing screamed foul play. No busted locks, no broken windows, no signs of a fight. The house was untouched, too untouched. And that was strange. A home sitting empty for 9 days should have looked lived in, messy, neglected, rotting food, piled up mail, something out of place. But instead, the Hackman house looked almost maintained, like someone had been there.
Oscar winner Gene Hackman, a known recluse in recent years, was seen in public. As we're learning incredible new details this hour about the circumstances surrounding his death. His front door open, scattered pills on the bathroom countertop, 1 dog dead in the closet, 2 still alive on the property. 95-year-old Hackman and his wife, a 63-year-old classical pianist, their German Shepherd dog, all of them tonight mysteriously dead. The police right now are ruling out a carbon monoxide leak. This frantic 911 call captured the moment they were found.
That's when authorities leaned into the most logical theory, carbon monoxide poisoning. It made sense. CO is a silent killer. No struggle, no warning, just slipping away. It could explain the peaceful deaths, the undisturbed house, even the panicked dogs. The carbon monoxide theory seemed solid until the test results came back clean. No trace of CO in the house, no gas leaks, no faulty appliances. Just like that, the most logical explanation was thrown out, leaving investigators with more questions than answers.
They're going to look at every aspect and try to figure out the exact cause. And I think the autopsy is going to be key, and the toxicology. But again, in my experience, that could take a while.
That's when things really stopped making sense. Gene was found near the door like he had been on his way out, but his pacemaker confirmed he had been dead for at least 9 days. If Betsy was still alive after he passed, why didn't she call for help? And that bathroom scene, the knocked over heater, the open pill bottle, it wasn't sitting right. Did she pass naturally? Did she take something? Or worse, was the whole setup staged to look that way? No signs of forced entry meant this wasn't some random break-in, but that didn't mean no one else had been inside. Investigators had to consider another angle. What if the person responsible didn't need to break in at all? What if it was someone they knew, someone they trusted enough to let in? And then came the timeline issue. Gene's pacemaker died on February 17th. If Betsy had been alive afterward, how many days did she spend alone? And why hadn't anyone heard from her? Sure, the couple wasn't super social, but no calls, no messages, no signs of life? If she was conscious after Gene's passing, why didn't she reach out to 911, a friend, a neighbor? Was she physically unable to? Or was something or someone keeping her from doing so? And then an even darker possibility crept in. What if Gene Hackman's death wasn't natural at all? What if Betsy had played a role and later suffered the same fate? Then there was that dead dog in the closet. That wasn't random. It hinted at something or someone being in that house before those bodies were found.
Are they moving at all?
No, dude, they're not moving. Just send somebody out here really quick.
Okay, my units are on their way, okay?
As forensic experts combed through the scene, the questions just kept stacking up. If this wasn't carbon monoxide and there was no sign of a break-in, then what in the world happened? Was this really just two tragic, natural deaths, or was somebody out here covering their tracks? Investigators knew they needed hard evidence: autopsy results, toxicology reports, and forensic tests on the bodies. But one thing was already clear: this wasn't your average case. Something went down in that house, and now the authorities were on a mission to get to the bottom of it. As they dug deeper into the strange and sudden deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, one critical question rose to the surface: who had something to gain? Gene and Betsy lived in privacy and luxury with an estate worth an estimated $80 million. And with no kids, Betsy, as Gene's wife and closest kin, had control of the bulk of their finances. But as investigators started pulling financial records, they found something that didn't sit right, something that hinted at a motive far more sinister. For years, Gene Hackman had put his trust and his money into the hands of a financial advisor. This advisor, whose name is being kept under wraps due to the ongoing investigation, had been managing Gene's assets and estate planning for over a decade. At first glance, Gene's financial records looked routine, until investigators spotted something that made their stomachs drop. Somebody had been moving serious money. Large withdrawals, millions at a time, had been pulled from one of Gene's investment accounts. And here's the kicker: these transactions weren't directly authorized by him. Even worse, the withdrawals had ramped up in the months leading to his death. Then came the most damning clue of all. On February 18th, 2025, just one day after Gene's pacemaker recorded his last heartbeat, that same financial advisor tried to access one of his main accounts. But when they went to move the money, they got shut down. The bank had locked the account, requiring personal verification from Gene himself, meaning whoever tried to pull those funds either thought Gene was still alive or had just realized he was gone. That's when investigators zeroed in on this so-called financial advisor. Records showed they had been fired just weeks before Gene's death. No official reason had been given, but sources close to the couple said Gene had been side-eyeing his finances. Had he caught on to some shady business? And if he did that get him killed? And then came another chilling detail. A neighbor who didn't think much of it at the time later recalled seeing a car parked outside the Hackman home on February 17th, the exact day Gene's pacemaker went silent. Security footage from the gated community's entrance backed up the neighbor's story. Somebody pulled up that night, stayed for nearly 2 hours, then dipped. The footage was grainy, the driver's face unclear, but the timing way too convenient to ignore. If this mystery visitor was the financial advisor or someone working for them, what really went down inside the Hackman home that night? One theory started taking shape. Gene might have confronted the advisor about the missing money, and things got heated. At 95, with a heart condition, even a high-stakes argument could have sent him over the edge. But was it just stress? Or had somebody made sure he wouldn't be around to tell his side of the story? And then there was Betsy. If she saw something, if she realized Gene didn't just drop dead on his own, was she taken out to keep her quiet? Her death was just as sketchy. The pills, the way her body was found, none of it sat right. Now, all eyes were on the financial advisor. They had motive, opportunity, and possibly even a physical presence at the crime scene. But was it enough to pin this as murder? Investigators knew they needed more, hard evidence. That's when they turned to forensics, looking for that one irrefutable clue. If the Hackmans had been taken out, there had to be something. Hidden in toxicology reports, digital footprints, or even on the bodies themselves. The truth was out there, and it was only a matter of time before it came to light. As forensic experts pieced together Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's final hours, they leaned on science to pull back the curtain on the truth. And at the heart of it all, a tiny device that had unknowingly recorded a key piece of evidence: Gene Hackman's pacemaker. This little machine, built to regulate his heartbeat, had also become a silent witness to his last moments. When investigators pulled the data, what they found was shocking. On February 17th, 2025, Gene's heart had stopped, just like that. No drawn-out distress, no signs of struggle. For a man his age with a heart condition, a sudden cardiac event wasn't unheard of. But here's where things got strange. There was nothing in his body suggesting stress, no clear trigger for his heart to just quit on him. That's when a chilling thought crossed investigators' minds. Had Gene Hackman been drugged? Suddenly, toxicology reports became the main focus, especially when it came to Betsy. And when the results dropped, they hit like a ton of bricks. Betsy had a sedative in her system, one commonly used for anxiety and sleep issues. Not unusual for someone her age, but the dosage? Way too high. Either she took too much, or someone made sure she did. That led to an even bigger question. Had Gene been given the same thing? Had he been drugged first, setting off his sudden collapse? The deeper investigators dug, the more it looked like this wasn't just a tragic coincidence, but a setup. Forensic accountants were now combing through Gene Hackman's financial records with a fine-tooth comb, and baby, the deeper deeper they dug, the messier it got. Investigators had already caught someone trying to access his accounts after his death. But what about before? What kind of moves were being made in the weeks leading up to that fateful night? Had large sums of money mysteriously disappeared? Were there sudden changes to wills or financial agreements? And the biggest question of all, had Gene found out about something that put a target on his back? With every new forensic revelation, the case against the prime suspect was getting tighter. But one final piece of evidence was about to surface, something that could blow this whole case wide open. Because at this point, investigators were no longer looking at this as just two tragic natural deaths. There were too many loose ends, too many unanswered questions, and too many financial red flags pointing to something much darker lurking beneath the surface. Officials still hadn't outright called this a homicide, but let's just say they weren't ruling it out either. Now, all eyes were on the final toxicology reports, because if those results showed sedatives or any other substances in Gene Hackman's system, especially at levels that didn't match his medical history, that would be the smoking gun. And when the truth finally comes out, the world is going to find out exactly what happened inside that Santa Fe home. This could be the smoking gun investigators need to prove Gene Hackman was drugged before his death. And when it comes to Betsy, her toxicology results might reveal whether she willingly took those pills found beside her, or if someone made sure she had no choice. If forensic experts find evidence of an overdose or a suspicious cocktail of drugs, this case won't just be tragic, it'll be the blueprint of a cold, calculated crime. But here's where things get real shady. The prime suspect, the financial advisor who had been handling Gene's money for over a decade? Well, ever since investigators started sniffing around those shady withdrawals and failed attempts to access Gene's accounts, he's been playing hard to get. Authorities have tried multiple times to bring him in for questioning, but he won't talk. And of course, his legal team is out here swearing up and down that he did nothing wrong, claiming all transactions were routine and totally authorized. But let's be real, who's buying that? Investigators sure aren't, especially since those sketchy bank access attempts happened right after Gene's death, before the world even knew he was gone. Now the heat is on. Law enforcement is doubling down, building a case brick by brick. Financial forensic specialists are going deep into Gene's estate records, looking for any sign that his accounts were being drained before he passed. And it's not just Gene's money under the microscope. The suspect's own financial records are being dissected to see if any suspicious deposits or transfers magically appeared right after Gene died. Because if investigators can connect the dots, that's checkmate. But law enforcement isn't stopping there. They're combing through security footage and pulling phone records, searching for any evidence that might place the suspect near the Hackman home on the day Gene's pacemaker flatlined. Because the million-dollar question still looms, was this a carefully planned, cold-blooded act of murder? And if so, was Gene the only intended victim, or was Betsy collateral damage? Think about it. The suspect had direct financial ties to the couple. If Gene had started pulling at the threads of a financial scheme, if he had confronted the suspect about missing money, could that confrontation have sealed his fate? And what about Betsy? Did she see something she was never supposed to? Was she silenced to make sure the truth never saw the light of day? Right now, authorities are in a holding pattern, waiting for those final lab results. But one thing is clear, this case is looking less like a tragic coincidence and more like a cold, calculated crime. And if the forensic and financial evidence keeps pointing in the same direction, prosecutors might be gearing up to press charges. At this point, it's not a question of if something sinister happened. The only question left? Do they have enough proof to take down whoever's responsible? One thing's for sure, this is no longer just the story of a Hollywood icon's passing. It's a full-blown real-life murder mystery. And the ending? It's coming soon.